Welcome to the 700 Club. Thanks for joining us today. Well, today, 13 million people. That's how many Texans lack clean running water. Record cold weather damaged infrastructure and pipes, forcing people to boil tap water before drinking it.
Well, power is slowly coming back in the Lone Star State, although officials say more blackouts are still possible. CBN's Ben Kennedy has the latest on this ongoing crisis.
Power has been restored to nearly 2 million homes across Texas, but some 325,000 businesses and homes still remain in the dark this morning. The winter weather is being blamed for the deaths of more than 3 dozen people. Utility officials say limited rolling blackouts could still occur as this snow and cold temps will stick around for the weekend. Hospitals around the Lone Star State are relying on generators to keep the lights on. President Joe Biden says the federal government is standing by to help and declared states of emergency in Texas, Oklahoma, and other states being impacted by the winter weather. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says they aren't out of the woods yet and have already begun to make sure this doesn't happen again.
And that starts with reforming the agency in charge of electric reliability in Texas.
The weather also led to a political problem for Senator Ted Cruz, who came back to the U.S. after he was caught on camera leaving for Cancun, Mexico with his family, a trip he now calls a mistake, saying his daughters asked to go on a trip with friends and he went with them because he wanted to be a good dad.
I certainly regret that this has become a distraction at a time when so many Texans are hurting and frustrated.
In addition to the power outages, some 13 million Texans, about half of the state's population, also lack clean water. State authorities ordered 7 million people to boil tap water before drinking it because the record cold weather damaged infrastructure and pipes.
We're running dangerously low on water.
CBN's Operation Blessing is on the ground to meet that need. Crews unloaded cases of supplies in Dallas and Cleveland, Texas, including water, blankets, hand sanitizers, and more. The help is necessary as the problems have been so widespread. As of Thursday afternoon, more than 1,000 Texas public water systems had reported disruptions due to the weather. Ben Kennedy, CBN News.
Well, people are hurting in Texas, and we want to be there to help them. Operation Blessing is already mobilizing. We have a warehouse facility in Dallas, Texas, and we're providing clean drinking water. We're providing disaster relief supplies. If you'd like to be a part of helping people, give us a call and say, yes, I want to donate to the Operation Blessing Disaster Relief Fund. You can call us, 1-800-700-7000, or you can go to cbn.com. There's a place on the giving page where you can designate your gift to disaster relief. Be a part of the solution. Be a part of helping people in Texas. Well, in other news, the White House and congressional Democrats are trying again to pass a major immigration bill. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, the highest profile element in the bill is an 8-year path to citizenship for an estimated 11 million people living in the country illegally. The legislation includes several other provisions, and Democrats are willing to split the bill into smaller measures in hopes of at least getting something passed. That's because immigration bills have failed for decades. Some Democrats worry this bill will also fail and could hurt them and the president politically. Republicans are also blasting it, with some calling it amnesty and saying the bill won't go anywhere. The Biden administration's recent cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline has shaken an entire industry and may cost thousands their jobs. Chuck Holton talked to some of those workers who are facing sudden unemployment.
President Joe Biden wasted no time making good on the central campaign promise, putting a stop to the Keystone XL pipeline. And Republican lawmakers are fuming.
It's not just bad for America and Americans, it's bad for the world. Our neighbors to the north and the south depend upon these pipelines. Part of our contractual agreement is the completion of Keystone XL.
According to Representative Clay Higgins, if the opposition cares about environmental impact, pipelines are not the right target.
The safest, most efficient, most ecologically sound means by which to transport energy product is by pipeline.
The Trump administration fast-tracked dozens of pipeline projects all across America, and now we see more than 9,500 miles of pipelines currently under construction in the United States alone. But the Biden administration's open hostility toward the oil and gas industry means that companies like these are going to have to start thinking about whether or not it's worth it to continue. But one thing that won't change is the customers' demand for the energy these pipelines carry.
Pipelines are proven to be both the safest and most environmentally friendly way to move oil and natural gas. So by canceling pipelines, you're just forcing it to travel a different way.
And moving petroleum products by rail or truck results in as much as 6 times more pollution than moving it by pipeline. The Biden administration's canceling of oil and gas contracts on federal lands could mean just moving the damage elsewhere.
About 22% of our oil and gas produced domestically comes from federal lands and water. And so not only will this have a huge impact on American jobs, but it will simply move production overseas where it is produced at less stringent standards.
And those lost jobs won't be easily replaced. Neil Crabtree is a third-generation pipeliner.
Starting over in a different job, you're not starting off at the top. You go right to the bottom, and you've got to learn it all over. We're talking about men and women who have mortgages. They've worked all their life to get to the point they are now. Starting over, you start off at the bottom.
American oil and gas workers make at least double what workers in the renewable industry make. And even the unions have said the oil and gas industry provides higher pay, better benefits, and more opportunities for advancement than the renewable industry.
A reasonable man would hope that our oil and gas industry and the millions of Americans that it employs, we would hope that the industry could survive the worst of times. What we would not expect is that those worst of times would be introduced by a newly inaugurated president of the United States.
For CBN News, I'm Chuck Holton.
Turning overseas now, Israel is a world leader in vaccinations, although the pace of Israelis getting their shots has slowed down. While government leaders work to vaccinate greater numbers, they face obstacles in the form of misinformation, public health, and personal privacy. Chris Mitchell brings us that story from Jerusalem.
Israel recently celebrated their 4 millionth Israeli to get their first vaccination shot. Out of that 4 million, nearly 3 million have had both shots. That's quite an accomplishment for a country of just over 9 million citizens. Israel has seen more than 700,000 COVID cases and 5,400 deaths. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu worries misinformation is keeping many Israelis from lining up for the shot.
The only thing that currently prevents the completion of this vaccination process is fake news and the superstitious and sometimes malicious beliefs that are planted among the public and on the internet and other places. Don't believe them.
In an effort to increase numbers, Netanyahu wants legislation that would provide the names of those not vaccinated to local governments. Health Minister Yuli Edelstein advocates allowing employers to prevent the unvaccinated citizens from coming to work. They face major pushback as so-called anti-vaxxers use posters and the web to spread messages like, "You're experimented on like lab rats. The vaccine is a death shot." The government counters with posters like this, which reads, "False information and lies endanger us."
People in the emergency fake news room, they are monitoring social media. The moment they see a fake news, they transfer the information to the cyber department in the Ministry of Justice.
While the government is monitoring and censoring social media, a number of Israelis remain convinced the vaccinations are not safe.
This whole thing, it's research, an experiment with unknown side effects. It's not like taking today a measles or flu vaccine. This is a totally new drug, new technology.
On Sunday, the government will enforce new regulations, stopping the unvaccinated from using gyms, attending sporting events, or going to a hotel. Israelis completing the two-step vaccination process will be issued a new green passport that will permit them access to those same venues. About 2,000 rallied in Tel Aviv this week, not to protest the vaccine, but for the freedom to choose whether or not to take it.
This has raised a bit of a dilemma, which is how should society, how should the government relate to people who have not been inoculated or vaccinated, or who refuse to do so.
Commentator and columnist Michael Freund says the growing fight over public health versus individual privacy and freedom could soon boil over.
One that I think every Western democracy at some point or another has to confront.
Israel becomes one of the world's first democracies to reach this stage in the pandemic fight. What's more important, protecting public safety with strict vaccination measures or preserving the beliefs, rights, and freedoms of its citizens? Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And seeing a similar struggle in the United States. Gordon?
We are going to get into this struggle in the United States, and many people don't want to take the vaccination, and I can see their point of view. Was it rushed? Was it properly tested? This is new technology. All of the RNA research that went into the two leading vaccines is frankly brand new to medical science, and so do you want to take that kind of thing? I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're at risk, and you already know if you're at risk, to die from the virus, and that's a particular age, or they're at-risk groups where you have pre-existing medical conditions where you could die from COVID-19, by all means, please get the vaccination. But if you are of an age where you're thinking about having children, or you're having children, then I would take a second look at it and go with the advice of your doctor. Are we going to see in America mandated vaccination? I hope not. I truly hope we won't ever get to that point. But we need, obviously, to bring this virus under control.